Hello, everybody. I feel like I haven't talked with anybody in ages, and we've certainly rounded a huge corner on this sidewalk stuff. So just glad to be here and glad to be moving on. So let's go ahead and start. We're going to go with approval of the agenda, and it is time 7:35. So all in favor of the agenda?
Aye.
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 Okay, sounds like unanimous, and that's approved. Debbie?
Yes.
Okay, next is approval of the minutes. We're going with September 14th first. Are we all in favor?
Question about the September ones. Did those change? Looks like they changed a lot from the last time we saw it, so I didn't really expect to go looking at it. It just looked really unfamiliar when I opened it up today. Looks like a lot of stuff changed in, or is it my recollection is wrong?
No, Stephen, I think you missed the email that I sent out on top of Debbie's, where we explained how we reduced it for reasons of best practices that are within the MML training, as well as examples from around the county and even some past examples from our own town. So we're keeping things more focused on what was done and less than what is said.
There seem to be things in the meeting or in this minutes that I don't recall being talked about. I missed that meeting, but when I listened to the tape, I don't recall these things being added. And it seems a little odd to be saying to shorten the minutes, and then it's repeated that a long list of people recommended something.
I don't know what meeting you're referring to, Stephen.
September.
You were there, right?
No, that's the one I missed.
Oh, you weren't. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but there's a lot of effort to say civil engineer record, town controlled field inspector, et cetera, and then it's repeated on the next page. That seems to go against trying to streamline.
Yeah, one was under the update, the other one was under residents' presentations. Okay, do we want to have a motion on this?
This is Phil. I move that we accept the September 14th minutes as written.
I second that, Phil, and I would say that if there's issues with it, it should have been addressed before this meeting. So I'm supporting it. I'm seconding it.
Okay, and Stephen, you can always go back and listen to the tape.
I did
the
that. That's what
September
I was saying.
tape.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I did to go back and listen again. I didn't realize there was another message in between about this. It just, I don't know. I won't comment any further on this. Yeah.
Okay, it was on the weekend. Okay. All right, sounds, Jerry Lee, I didn't hear you.
Yes, I'll vote in favor of them, although there is the repetition.
Yeah, okay. Duly noted. All right, minutes are approved for September. Let's go to October. Any changes, or are we good with October?
So this is Phil. I've got a couple of very minor changes, but I think they might help. The first one is stormwater.
Okay.
And it's not swell, it's swale, S-W-A-L-E.
All right, good.
Phil, spell that again, please.
S-W-A-L-E, like S-W and an A-L, A-L-E, swale.
What bullet is that under?
First
Phil?
bullet and twice in the first bullet. On the first line of the first.
Yeah, the erosion control update for the swell.
Am I looking at the right one?
Yeah, October. It says on the town updates,
Right.
stormwater. Yeah.
Oh yeah, got it. Okay.
Good catch, Phil. I mean, it was a swell update.
Yeah.
I'll give that, though. Okay.
Yes, it was. So I heard. Okay, we'll correct that. All right. Anything else?
Yeah, a couple more. Petco street lighting. Go down to, let's see now, 1, 2, 3. So the first on the fourth thing, it might say, I forget, actually, injunction lighting is what I think it said. Injunction lights on the first word of the fourth line.
I see three lines up from the bottom there. So
Yes.
concerns with changing from injunction lights to LED.
And so it should be, that's one of them, and there'll be another one that's just before that,
I see
where the
it.
word injunction is used. So if you just change those to induction lighting,
Yeah.
Okay.
Good, we got that.
and then the other one is on clean and lean,
Mhm.
and I would like to just suggest a rewording. And if we,
Okay.
it's not too bad. It's so starting with the third up from the bottom, where it says the town to remove trees, authorizes the town to remove trees. I would like to say to do work on private property.
Authorizes the town to do work.
Right,
So it's not just about trees. Is that where you're going?
exactly.
Okay. All right. To do work on private property and charge the property owner for expense. Okay.
And then the next one, I believe in order to capture what it meant to say was, you could either use he or I put the attorney, informed us that without the ordinance, enforcement would be costly and require court action.
That's good. Yeah. Okay. The attorney also informed us that without
The ordinance,
the ordinance,
enforcement
could be costly and require court. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That does it for me.
I'm saying it could be costly and what?
Well, it's on there and require court action. So we're just, this is how it'll read, Debbie. The attorney has informed us that without the ordinance, enforcement could be costly and require court action. So we're just sticking in a couple things here.
Okay, I got it.
It's
All right, I
the
have a question related to one of the items Phil brought up.
Okay, go ahead.
On the Pepco Street lightning, Phil, did you ask Debbie to fix the word lightning to be just lighting?
No, but you're good.
Because I think that should just be lighting, right?
Yes,
Okay.
you're right. Missed that one.
I missed it too.
Well, I missed it before. I only noticed it when Phil asked us to look at that section again. Sometimes it's worth taking a moment to look at these meeting minutes during the meetings.
So we're not changing to lightweight asphalt then.
Where's that one?
I was kidding, because that would be lighting the street.
Okay. All right. Okay. So without any other changes, but to include the ones we've just discussed, are you in favor of approving the minutes with the changes? And do you want to make a motion or something? Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for October
And
as
second.
amended.
I'll second.
Okay. All
I
right.
can second it.
Who was
All
it that
right. We had Stephen and Phil seconding, Jerry Lee
Okay.
initiating it.
All
Okay.
right, thank you.
All right, so approved. Thank you, everybody, with those changes, and we will make those before we post them. Okay, do we have any presentations by residents? And the time is 7:44. Okay, I don't hear anybody. I don't think I see anybody. All right, so no presentations by residents.
And no one's raising their hand online or anything. I can't see. I'm on my phone tonight. So.
Yeah, I can't see many. I don't see anybody except me.
I see several residents, but no one's,
Okay.
wait, let me check the chat room real quick. No. Nobody's raised their hand to say they want to speak. Everybody has their mics off.
All right, great. Okay, and then we go to, we're going to have action items. Oh, I forgot to send the email to the folks. Okay, so We had three residents who submitted names, and I talked with Jenny Kravanek, the chair, as well, and I thought the residents who put their names in had some very good remarks to say. And if you have those, the two people that we're going to put forward that I'd like to appoint tonight are Adam Darkins and Kathy Benjamin. And the third person was Lizzie Glidden Boyle, but she's graciously agreed to wait until maybe this spring because Kathy Benjamin is deeply already involved with the restoration of the outfall area at the beginning of Porcupine Woods next to Claremont. So she's deeply involved in that, and they're supposed to have some of that planting finished by next spring. So we're letting Kathy stay on for 6 months. Well, it's a 1-year extension from, let's see. Oh yeah, it was a 1-year extension last year. So this is another extension, and we're going to let her stay on for 6 months until May 1st. And Adam, he would be finishing out Andrew Fiddler's term because Andrew had to resign early in his term. He was moving with his family. So Adam will be finishing out Andrew's term, which ends February 2023. So you have some of their remarks, and if we can move on, I'd like to just have them appointed for their term lengths. If I could have your approval.
This is Jerry Lee. I'll motion to approve the extension of Kathy Benjamin's term for 6 months and new appointment for Mr. Darkin.
Okay. Any second there?
I'll second that. This is Mario.
Okay, Mario. Thank you. Jerry Lee, thank you. Okay. They are approved. Thank you. Anybody with any new business? We have nothing, but probably too late to change that. Let's go to the updates, if that's okay. And we're moving right along. It's 7:47 right now. Do that for the tapes. Okay, so SRTS. Well, you know, I took some time off, and that was right as the sidewalks were finished, and then the outfall was finishing. So we're finished with all that. We had a punch list site walk. I think it was last week. I can't remember actually. And there are very, very few things, but they are some things that need to be fixed. Mostly some cracks in the concrete that have appeared as several residents actually raised that to me, and we'd seen those, but there were some other cracks too along a curb, not just on the sidewalk. We have a slope issue we have to contend with, which is over on the sidewalk across at the crosswalk at the top of Claremont Hill as you cross over to Montrose. So up there, just above the Grefsheims, there's some slope issues right by the landing, what we call the sidewalk ramp. So we're going to be looking at that. We also have a slope issue on the ramp on Montrose that is in between Rob Sanchez and AJ Bott's house. So we're looking at that as well. We have to fix some detectable warning pads on some of the ramps, sidewalk ramps. And we also have to fill the joints between the sidewalk panels, the concrete panels, with a sealant. Those are really the big ones. We still have an outstanding drain issue we have to contend with over at 11002 Kenilworth. That's at Sanjay and Eileen Kelly's house. So that's about it. We were told that because of the rain coming this week, they were going to try to do it after that because they didn't want to leave things open. So I don't know if this really means they're going to start Thursday or Friday or next week, but I've asked them to give us a 24-hour day at least notice. So that's about it. And that's all I know at this point. All right.
Jerry Lee, I'm sure Dan passed on some questions we asked last month, but he was not prepared to be able to answer, questions of that level of detail. One question was whether you have any report for us on how things are going with the new project manager, and what kind of benefits you're seeing for having that contract in place. Because we talked about when we first established that contract that we would consider using it for other projects. And so it would be helpful to hear how that's going and what lessons you've observed in overseeing that contract. And I think actually in my notes I have here, Debbie was going to provide us a copy of that contract, but if we got that, I think I missed it. So Debbie, I'm interested to hear if we have that.
Okay, well, I haven't heard the questions, but I do recognize that this is sort of touching on personnel issues, so I can't really get into that.
Well, we talked about that. Yeah, we talked about that. I'm not really looking for a performance of the person, but I'm looking for the benefits of the position. Like what kind of, what are your observations from overseeing it? Because most of us don't have, regular interface with this contract. But if we're going to consider having a similar contract in the future, what's working? What would you do differently? Should we make any changes to the contract? How has it helped? Things like that. I understand that we, of course, in this setting would not want to talk about the performance of the individual. I'm more looking for feedback on the concept of hiring out this kind of work the way we did.
Okay, well, obviously, I think he provided tremendous assistance with helping me finish up this sidewalk project. He could really keep shaking the tree for the prime and the subs. He interfaced really well with residents too. So he's now just finishing up documentation that we have to keep submitting and correcting and pulling from Patriot. So he's still involved that way, nowhere as much as he used to be. He'll be out making sure that the punch list work is being done correctly. I don't foresee any extension with him at this point in time for any future projects yet. So I don't think I'm going to weigh in on the rest of that right now. We have stormwater projects coming, and Mario will give you an update on that. But Chuck has, emphasized to me that, he very much intends to be part of that, daily oversight, so that we don't really need a project manager. And certainly we don't have all the bureaucratic forms and all those kind of things that we have to attend to. So it's a much different level of involvement. So that's all I really want to say at this point.
Thank you. I think that's helpful. And it would be good, Debbie, if we could get a copy of the contract so that if we want to consider something like that in the future, we can look at the provisions and think about whether there would be any improvements we'd want to make for the future. And then the other question I had, Kaki, was do we have a financial report on whether there were any cost adjustments made from the shortening of the Kenilworth stretch?
No, we do not. We are not even there yet. We are still reconciling quantities on earlier invoices. We're not even there yet. But, we're not over the grant fund, which is the most important thing.
But there were no agreements made as to whether there would be cost adjustments for shortening that stretch when the decision was made to shorten that stretch?
So this is built on quantities. Okay. So if we don't build a you know, a certain section of sidewalk, we aren't billed for it. You know, we didn't do, if you may not, you weren't there, but we didn't do individual budgeting for each street. In fact, that was sort of discouraged because it could have increased the overall budget, or I'm sorry, the overall cost in bids. So it was just bid as one large project and invoiced by, you know, the quantities, unit measures of different materials and labor and so forth.
So you're saying it was not a lump sum project? I thought it was a lump sum bid to do the project versus other bids by other companies.
It was
Yes,
lump sum.
what did I say? I'm sorry.
You made
I
it sound
thought I
like it was
said-
you made it sound like a not to exceed contract based on unit prices when I thought all along it was a lump sum, which means the contractor gets paid to do the scope for the amount that they said. If there's something less, usually the owner will want a credit, or the contractor, or, well, I don't want to
This
say
is a
it backwards.
state grant.
Usually there's credits,
Okay.
there's extra for doing more and there's a credit for doing less.
Yeah, this is a state grant.
So the
And
state's not asking for the money.
it doesn't work like that, Stephen.
Oh, it
It's
does.
if the okay. Let's move on then. You know, if you know it's okay.
Well, so Kathy, are you saying in answer to my question that you'll know once the billing is sorted out whether we get any credits for the reduced scope?
Absolutely, because the contractor cannot bill us for work they didn't do.
Well, that's what I was asking. So it was a no, then I guess.
I don't know what you're talking about, Stephen. I'm sorry. We could talk offline if you like.
Yeah, maybe.
You're probably not as up on the grant process and the way this was, you know, the way this was developed and built and billed.
So let's move on. I think the question
Yeah.
that Gerald Lee asked was very fair. It's like basically, you know, do we have an update on any kind of reconcile, or, you know, and the answer is we're not there yet, but there should be
we're
some
not there.
discussion of that at some point. So let's just table it until we know
Definitely.
what discussion is. I think that's a fair jumping off point, if you don't
Okay,
mind.
Mario. I like that. All right, thank you. All right, so Mario, that just brings us to you on the stormwater. If you want to give us an update.
Sure. And I apologize, I'm not on the camera. I'm on my phone. My computer was acting funky and I didn't want to start working on some IT stuff. So I apologize, I'm not on the video.
That's okay. I don't see
So
anybody.
super quick on storm water management. Again, I want to thank Debbie and Chuck Berry for the work they've been doing this. They've been very helpful in terms of just really doing a lot of investigating and doing a lot of work with our engineer team, and that's at Clockazar, and a lot of communication with the state and county. The only real update that I have today is really discussion about what to do with the end of Rokeby between Garrett Park and Garrett Park Estates. As you know, the first part of that project is already been approved. It's going to be underway at some point with the engineers and the work. And that's over by the Heinsohn's property to continue to work on the swell there. But one of the things that came up, and I just want to say this is very, very preliminary, so I don't have a lot of detail on this, but I wanted to share with the council and with Mayor Kaki and the town, so that there's no confusion. So one of the things that Jason at Clockazar brought up was the discussion about should we consider, and again, I'm just using the word consider because we're very early on, should we consider possibly replacing the footbridge at the end of Rokeby in lieu of larger piping, and just build a nice footbridge over the swell there. And apparently that used to exist back in the 60s and early 70s. So there was at some point, there was a bridge called the Brunson Bridge, I think it was called. I don't have a lot of information on it, guys. I'm just sharing what I know. So there was just discussion real quickly with Clark Azir to say, hey, there was a bridge there one time. As an option, we can look into what it would cost and gather this information to build a design build bridge. The other option is just as what the plan was originally, was just to replace the piping, the large piping under the bridge to make it larger to handle the flow of water. Pretty straightforward, and keep the existing footpath across the swell there. So right now, Clark Adair is just wanted to go ahead and collect information and costs, and once we get information and if we decide to bid anything out, then of course it would be a discussion for the entire town council. It's certainly not a discussion, just a decision that I would make, and nor should I allow it to be made solo. So, but it's just kind of a curveball that came up, and I thought it was worth investigating. It may be cost prohibitive. I have no idea at this point. But so right now the option is, do we look at doing something to replace the current footpath, or do we just continue forward with building out and cleaning up the swell and replacing with larger piping there as well? So that's the only update on the end of Rokeby. And I believe last month I talked about the inventory analysis. So that is currently in the engineer's hand. That's on the OSIC property over in Claremont. So that's in the engineer's hands. I don't have a timetable on completion on that. That's something that's going to take a little time to work through. Other than that, I don't have anything else to share tonight with the council and the town. But I'm happy to answer any questions if there's any.
Yeah, just a quick comment.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice to hear the bridge idea coming around again. That was something I had suggested a couple of years ago. I think Dick Pratt did as well.
Oh, great.
And that bridge was built in it was built in 1970, I believe.
1969.
69, and then so recently just passed like what it would have been its 50-year anniversary. And I think I remember hearing a story that it was built by Boy Scouts or
I think
something
by the
like
not Boy Scouts, but something along those lines. I have.
It was the
Something like
state of Maryland Corps of Engineers.
There you go.
National Guard.
Yeah.
There's a
National Guard. Yeah.
National Guard, Mario? Okay,
The
thanks.
Maryland National Guard. Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it could be helpful
It's
because
a
then we don't have to
training
worry about.
exercise, I think. Yeah.
But we wouldn't have to worry about restricting flow through that area. If you have a bridge, it would be able to handle pretty much
Agree.
anything and not have much chance of any risk on the
Correct.
on the
Absolutely,
upstream.
Steve.
Yep.
And that's why Jason brought it up and kind of floated the idea past Chuck and Debbie, myself, and I mentioned, and Kaki was aware of it briefly. But at this point, we got to they got to gather information, and we'll see where this goes. I mean, if it's something what's within a reasonable budget, I don't know, what that number is, then great, I'm on board. I love the fact I didn't realize that, Stephen, that this was something that was a conversation that was had years ago. That makes me actually kind of happy to hear that.
I think a lot of residents around town really kind of missed it when it went away, from what I understand.
Does anyone know why it went away? How? I couldn't find. Did I miss that? Phil, did you ever look into why? Did you ever find out why it was? What happened to it? Did it just fall apart? I have no idea.
No, not yet, but we may be able to find out here shortly, and I'll address that in a couple seconds.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all I have.
Hey, Mario, this is Jerry Lee. Did you say that Clark Azar is going to come up with some cost estimates for the options for that? Is that where we are in the process?
Right. So they have to collect information and get different prices for different structures, for like the design build structures, and then deliver it to us, and then I'll deliver it to all of us, and then we can have that conversation. I couldn't even begin to tell you what this would cost. So yes, they just gather the pricing.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I thought we were going to go ahead and set it up as options, so then we'd have an idea of cost.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely. Oh, absolutely, Kaki. It's not just one. It's
Okay.
It's so basically options are the bridge, and then within the bridge, let's call the bridge as one silo, and within this idea of a foot pedestrian bridge, there'd be different options to see what would make sense in terms of, so it won't just be one, like here's one choice. And the other option is, the other silo is just leave the foot the footpath and
causeway.
and go back to just replacing the swell and fixing the whole the thing there. So yeah, so TBD, guys.
And were you saying that the upstream portion of that's already been put into action, or I remember we saw a drawing for it, and I think I missed the window to review it, but I don't remember ever hearing costs or having any approval process for that. Did I forget it, or has it not happened yet? So.
Cost at this point, what Jason is doing at Clark Azar is he's actually pulling together all the information to put together a scope of work that will actually go out to some different companies to provide proposals on the cost to either do pedestrian bridge or to replace the existing piping with larger piping.
I think Stephen was talking about the original work. The original work, I believe, was approved, and that, but I'd have to.
I remember us all kind of agreeing on a concept. I just don't remember ever seeing any, and maybe I'm forgetting.
Yeah, I don't
seeing
think we
cost or
approved.
approving anything.
Yeah, I think all we saw was a drawing, but it didn't have the actual scope of work with a budget. So I don't think we've approved anything of that nature.
No, and we how do I say this? That RFP will include what we might call the base, which is the erosion mitigation methods in the swale behind the Heinzens and Canetti's house. Then option one for the pipe, which is a much larger pipe. And Mario, I don't remember, or Phil remember whether Clark Azar is looking at 42-inch diameter or a 50 plus some diameter. But that's one
48.
option. What is it?
48, 52.
Okay, 48 or 52. Okay. And then the second option is a prefab bridge with just basic kind of, specifications, load bearing,
Yeah.
the weight for that, the length and the width and some other.
Yeah. So Jerry, just to answer your question, thank you, Kaki. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
So the reason why this came up is because the work has not been approved. They're still getting bids on it and to figure out the pricing. But what Jason's recommendation is, if we're going to do this bridge, let's build it all into one. It's going to be make more sense to do it once, because the last thing we want to have is an endless construction site and then have another people complaining about just nobody wants to have a site under construction longer than necessary. So no, Jerry, and Stephen, you're 100% right. Nothing's been approved other than the approval to get bids out, but now we're going to add this extra wrinkle to it. That's all.
Right.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense to address it holistically. Thank you.
Yeah.
right. So no contract is going to be signed until Mario brings it forward to the council for discussion.
Darn right.
Okay. All right. Phil, would you like to give an update on the archives, please?
Sure. So the first thing is Claire's been able to recently digitize the Brunson Bridge collection. It will be adding the material to our archives. So you'll be able, at least with what we have, you'll be able to answer any questions. And they've got a lot of interesting information, some back and forth about permits and some other things that happened, some conceptual drawings that didn't turn out the way they were going to. But anyway, so she's done that, and she's working with the Archives Committee to revise the Archives webpage to something a little better, and is working. She updated the archives listing with the Montgomery County Volunteer Center and added 2 virtual volunteer opportunities, transcription and research. So far, she's received about 5 responses from interested individuals, and she's going to set up some telephone interviews to talk with them. And she's also working with Montgomery County Schools to get opportunities approved for student service learning hours, or SSL hours. And the Charles Momsen exhibit will remain up through the end of November, at which point it'll get replaced with an exhibit to celebrate the lives of community members we lost this year. And finally, she's continuing to organize and process inactive town records for easier searching and access. Any questions?
Thanks, Phil. That was great.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Phil. Jerry Lee, would you like to give an update on the Arboretum?
Yes, thank you. Sorry for that. Two quick things. The committee is moving forward and working with Debbie and the town arborist on fall planting, but also the pruning and removals. And also, the committee is continuing to work on some language to update our ordinance to make it consistent with the comprehensive arboretum plan that was completed last year. I wanted to spend a moment to give you a little bit more detail about the outfall area in Porcupine Woods that Kaki mentioned earlier. The committee has developed a plan for the renewal of the disturbed area in Porcupine Woods adjacent to the outfall construction near Claremont Avenue that was part of the SRTS project. This disturbed area needs to be replanted because of there was a lot of disruption there, and the contract for the SRTS only included reseeding essentially. So this will prevent erosion, it will beautify the area and discourage growth of invasive plants in the area. And just generally support the wildlife and the regeneration there in Porcupine Woods. There are enough funds in the Arboretum Committee budget already to cover the cost of the plant purchase and installation as we have it currently budgeted, which is approximately $7,000. Additionally, the committee is also exploring potential supplemental contract maintenance support for the first 2 years to ensure that the plantings take successfully. And they'll continue to work with Debbie on that. The plantings will be divided in about 3 areas. There's an east patch, which is the area between the Schwartz property and the trail. The west patch, which is on the left side of the trail, if you're coming from Claremont Avenue. And then there's also an area on the Schwartz's property because the Schwartz family provided an easement on their property to allow the town for the construction of the stream improvements, which disturbed a lot of their property. So this replanting will include putting back their property and to prevent erosion along the stream bank along their property. So some of the plants included are hollies, pawpaws, which I think based on listserv activity, should be very popular. Some sedges, which are hardy grass-like plants, red maple, white oaks, red bud, Carolina allspice, chokecherry shrubs. I may have missed some, but I think that gives you a general idea of the kind of plantings that are in the plan. Local resident Allison Schwartz actually developed the design. She is the deputy director for the Audubon Naturalist Society in Chevy Chase. And the committee would like to thank Allison Pierce for helping with that landscape plan and Kathy Benjamin for overseeing the overall project development. So the committee is continuing to work with the town manager to move that forward. The next stage will be to do the bidding and procurement process over the winter. And I see that Jennifer Krivanek, our committee chair, is on the line in case you want to add anything that I may have missed, Jenny.
I think you did a wonderful job of summarizing it, Jerry Lee. I have nothing to add. I think it's a good plan, and we're looking forward to getting it approved so we can start hopefully this month, if not this spring.
Right. Yeah, and the good news is the initial estimate based on checking in with one purveyor is that it fits within our existing budget, so we wouldn't have to request additional funds. But if once we go through the bidding process, if that changes, we'll work with Debbie to bring that back to the council. And that's all I have for tonight, if there are any questions.
Thanks, Shirley. Not from me. That was great.
Is everyone still there? I thought I
You're
checked.
muted. Are you talking?
I'm
Nobody's
not.
talking.
Yes, I was talking, but I was muted. I got everything froze and I had to restart. Sorry. Stephen, if you would start with the land use
Yeah.
and then follow on with historic preservation and town hall renovation.
Okay, sure. You're on mute is like the catchphrase for 2020 virtual meetings, I think. Get it like every day. So make this kind of brief. I intended on land use, starting out with that one. I think you had said that one first, Kaki. I'd intended to bring a proposed ordinance today, and I was trying to finish it off this morning, first thing, kind of jamming in before work, and I wasn't able to get to it. Work was too busy, so I didn't want to send it out being too close to the meeting to add it to the agenda, so I'll have to add it next time. But what it summarizes down to is what we're going to do is, it's going to sound so funny how simple it is. There's one line in the ordinance that says that the front setback has to be 30 feet from any street. What we're going to do is add a word, or we're proposing to add, collaboration with the Land Use Advisory Committee, is add one word to say it would be 30 feet front setback from any front street, which would add in this distinction that used to be there and still exists in the Garrett Park overlay to Montgomery County zoning, which allows for 30 feet front setback on a front street and then 15 if there is a side street setback, which I've explained this a couple times in meetings. I don't want to bore you all with going into it too long, but there are very few lots in town that do have that distinction, but it's a real onerous thing if you do have one of those lots, because it makes your buildable area really just not feasible. So we think that's a good proposal. I got to finish up that draft. Making that draft for a proposed ordinance would be, that's relatively simple. What would go in the record, what I'd like to do is put together, like George Martin already put together a lot of information on the rationale of why this is proposed, and I have a similar thing I'm adding onto that sort of for the council's use and for town to kind of see what's driving this. So all that will be coming for next meeting, and I'll send that stuff out in advance, probably pretty shortly after today, just so we have it. On any questions on that, or should I go through all three and then open up for questions?
Keep going.
All right, with silence, I'll just keep on going.
I'm sorry. I'm talking again. Sorry, I had it. Oh dear.
Yeah.
I actually do have a question, and I ask for forgiveness if we beat this, around already. But you had just said that you were putting in some special language here. 30 feet from any front street, you said, and 15 feet from any side street. Is that right?
Correct, and that's what the Garrett Park overlay has. That was made in the 90s. That's kind of specific for Garrett Park within Montgomery County's R90 zoning.
Right,
So
and
it's really kind of
okay. That's all I was going to ask, because I remember that's what it's been. So is it? I didn't know that. What?
Well, ever since that line was put in the ordinance, it's been 30 feet from either side. So any house that has, like similar to yours, like if you have a neighbor out on both sides, then that doesn't apply. But if you don't have a neighbor on one of the sides, that street could potentially be determined as to be a side street, because it wasn't originally in the plan to be a front street. So normally you had to have some other use that's next to you on the other side that's not a residence, like a park, or we have some other ones that are just border on nothing. So one borders on, two of them actually border on the school. So, but they're non-residential uses. So.
Okay, sorry about that.
Oh no.
Sounds good.
Good question. Right. So yeah, so that's the land use one. So I want to try to bring that to a close. And I didn't want to dump it on everybody too close to the meeting. So I'll bring it next time. Preservation, there's been more than usual activity with the county Historic Preservation Committee. There are a couple different projects that have been going on to have historic area work permits. One is a Chevy house on Claremont, where there's been several iterations of exploration on the front porch, but it's seeming like that's going to go through at this month's county HBC meeting. So owners are happy with the direction it's going, and so it seems like that one's going to work. There's another one that I think it's the first one we've had where it would be a solar panels review and probable approval by the county to put solar panels on top of a house in the historic district on Montrose.
Wow.
So,
Good.
and the committee had a discussion. Just I wasn't able to make it that day, but which is unfortunate because I was the one who suggested it. But they had a conversation with the county HPC just to kind of like get their thoughts on what the trajectory is going to be on solar panels in historic districts going forward. So that was helpful to them.
Good. Yeah.
And on the town hall front, I've been working on concept plans, and I have already had rough order of magnitude costs. I'm really just basing them off of past projects I worked on, government projects, historic buildings, this region, kind of very square foot based cost, not really detailed. And so it's kind of helpful to be able to show what would be multiple different iterations. And I think this has been explained before more. The idea is to get the idea of whether this town overall, as a majority, have appetite for like a small project, a medium, a large, or an extra large, and then kind of see what everybody wants. But then the next challenge is going to be to figure out how to pay for it all, because we have, I can't remember if it's a little bit over or a little under $200,000 that's been growing in the budget. Set aside for town hall, and this year we don't have anything feeding into it in the planned budget. Maybe that will change after the year is up or at the mid-year, but we haven't had anything in there for this year. Nicely, one resident, Ken Schwartz, actually took it upon himself to do a little bit of research. He was looking through budget information, and he sent me a lot of very useful information. I'd like to work with him to get that summarized with potential ways that to kind of pool money and try to pay for a pretty significant amount of what we have. So we'll just see if we can kind of make that work, and then whatever is envisioned and wanted that costs more than that, we'd have to figure out whether it's going to be some sort of grant we seek or other sort of funding like a bond. So so we'll have to cross that kind of a bridge when we get there. But that was very helpful to me to just kind of have some idea to, we could actually get there with a lot of these options. So more to come on that. And I think for that thing, rather than take it into a lot of time in a town council meeting, I'll either do a separate session on that, just a webinar everybody can attend, or I'll send something out on GPML for town review. So
sure. Okay. The other thing, could I add and have you just be thinking about it? I think at some point we might want to create some kind of a working committee for you, because I don't really think you should be, it should be all on you. You certainly would still be the lead and involved, but I think we ought to get some other people sort of on a working group with you. It'll help move things along.
Yeah, it could help. I mean, it's helpful to have
think
like
about
Ken
it
on
anyway.
it. Yeah, it was definitely helpful to have Ken, and I guess I think Bob Reinhardt is offered to help before. I've been trying to reach out to him, and I haven't had much luck. But yeah, it'd be great after we have maybe like the next information issuance. It'd probably be helpful to see who's got some time and willing to lend a hand. And one other person that's already helping is George Martin is offered to help. So
good. Okay, that's great.
Yeah, so I'm not
all right, we can
totally
talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. Thanks, Stephen. I can't wait to hear more about that.
Okay.
In case nobody has anything else to ask Stephen, we're going to move on to Phil on the lighting. Not lightning, but lighting.
Lighting. Okay, so last month Debbie and I had a meeting with Tammy Watkins from Pepco to get some questions answered, and actually Tammy still owes us some information, unless Debbie, you've got it by chance.
No, I do not. She hasn't given it to me yet.
Okay. No. So anyway, what this gets down to is that there was a deal where, or you've heard that people have said that we've spent like $250,000 to install these lights that we have now, the current induction lights.
Right.
Okay, but if you look at the way Pepco sets things up, if you make any changes to your lighting system or add things to your lighting system, even though they may end up owning it, they expect a customer contribution. So regardless of whether we did anything with induction lights versus regular lights versus this or that, we still would have put in a big chunk of money just to have things change from the old incandescent style bulbs to something more efficient. So we have to keep that in mind when looking at this thing. It's not like we're going to somehow, lose a $250,000 investment, because actually a bunch of it was spent on putting in nicer looking fixtures, doing some tuning to the fixtures and so forth. All this being said, one of the things that I looked at was that induction lights are, in round numbers, say 80 watts per lumen, whereas LEDs are 120 watts per lumen. And the point here is that we can save a whole bunch of energy by going to LEDs. The second thing we've got is that these things are 15 years old, and Pepco told us that they're starting to have a problem finding parts for them. And I was able to confirm that to some extent, because I did some research and found out, for instance, that the largest manufacturer of the induction lighting equipment was Chinese, and they ceased production back in 2018. And that's simply because they just don't have the energy efficiency that you can get from an LED. And if you're going to replace something, you might as well replace it with an LED. So we're going to run into some obsolescence issues. And having worked on obsolescence issues for the last at least 10 years trying to support a 20-year-old train, I can tell you it's something that we really don't want to get into. But if we really want to keep these exact same lights, then we need to think about doing a strategic last time buy of spare parts to be kept on hand. Probably we would have to store them so Pepco could maintain these lights. And right now I've got almost 100 of the things. If we go with the LEDs, then we're going to get something that's new. And Pepco has told us that they should be able to retrofit a new fixture that will look exactly the same, and the pictures they showed looked exactly the same as what we have now. It's just that it would be in an LED form. So all this leads me to, I'm kind of leaning towards saying that maybe we should look at doing the LEDs. I can still put in a request to be heard, but we look at doing the LEDs. The downside is that the rate will go up. However, because we're using less energy, I don't expect the rate change to impact us much. In the long run, that is. But if we want to keep what we've got, we need to understand that we may have problems getting parts, and we have to buy parts ahead of time. Or we can accept the fact that, yes, we may be retiring them a bit early. And in the stuff that I've read so far, I've seen that the average lifetime of these things of induction lights is about 20 years. And Pepco has said that they figure it will take about 5 years to go through the entire county, replacing all the existing equipment with LEDs. And that includes a 1-year inventory followed by 4 years of implementation. And we can kind of pick where we want to be, whether we want to be on the front end of the implementation or we want to be on the back end. So if you just look at it as 5 years, now we're getting towards the end of their useful service life.
Yeah.
And do we really want to try and hang on to these, or do we just say, hey, let's go with something more efficient, more modern, more up to date, something that if they have to repair them due to scale, basically we get a better rate on parts and everything else. So I can still put something out there that says we wish to have our comment in front of the Public Service Commission, but I'm thinking that we may want to seriously consider going to the LEDs, as long as they can have the same fit, form, and function as what we've got hanging there already.
When do you need to let them know, Bill?
I can just send out I should be able to send out, from what I understand, something just to put a stake in the ground, and I have about 9 days to do that.
Okay.
But all that would be was just to say that, we're considering wanting to keep our existing ones. We wouldn't necessarily have to say, the way I see it, the way I understood it was, we wouldn't have to say, oh, we're definitely going to keep them. We would just say, we're looking at keeping them.
Can I ask two questions?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, two questions quick. just for clarification, Phil, I thought that Pepco was only doing LED lights on wood poles, but you're saying that they would even entertain doing the pole and fixtures we've got that have the induction lights in them?
Oh, the inductions, and I'm sorry, I should have clarified that. The stuff on Strathmore on the metal poles will not be touched. Only the ones on the wooden poles, and those are the induction lights.
Okay. All right,
So
that helps me.
I apologize.
Okay, no problem. One more, sorry, Jerry Lee, one more, Phil. You said the rates were going to go up. Is that when they change out the original, whatever the light bulbs are, to LEDs? When would the rates go up? And if we don't change out to LED, are we still affected by a rate increase? That's where I'm going.
My understanding, and this is something that Tammy was supposed to send to us, but my understanding was that we would not be affected, other than they may not be able to repair the things if we keep the existing light. And the rates would go up once we accept and they install an LED.
I see. Okay. Okay.
Thanks. Actually, you and I were going to ask pretty much the same question, but then I did have one follow-up. So if this does not include those green poles on Strathmore, but are those induction lights that would eventually cause us difficulty replacing them? I mean, what's the future for those, I guess, is the question.
So, no, those are metal halide lamps, which we could replace at some point if we desire to, but right now it'd be on our dime, because Pepco's only replacing the stuff that Pepco owns, which is stuff that hangs on a wooden pole. And right now, at least for foreseeable future, there should be no problem getting spare parts or conversion to LED, because there's actually one of the poles down by Weymouth has already been converted to an LED. And that
so SHA, oh, sorry. Is SHA owns the green poles, or we do?
We do.
We do. Okay.
Town of GP.
Mm-hmm.
And the LED was done. I'm sorry. The LED was done because somebody hit the pole, and so the decision was, hey, let's try putting an LED in to see how much difference it makes versus the rest of them.
Is that the one? Did you say it was on the Strathmore Hill?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask you, how does the lighting actually? Does it really look different? Is it very noticeable? But that was compared to the halide, so I guess that's not the comparison I'm wondering about. Okay.
Now, are you talking about the lighting as far as the new pole lights if they go to LED?
Versus induction, yeah, on the wood poles, yeah. I'm wondering what the difference in look how it would look different. Because the induction lights have the little aluminum shielding, right, to help direct direct the angle of the light. Isn't that right?
That's correct. And
sure.
we've been told. Well, I've got one in front of my house, and it's got the little shade in there, and we've been told that they will replace those so that it'll be fit, form, and function the same. And lighting color wise, it's supposed to be color wise the same, although we could go to, I was even going to toy with the idea of us looking at something that's a little more red in color, not quite as white. But that's something for down the road. Other people have been asking the same question. Can we change the color of the light?
Yeah, good thought. How do you guys all want to go forward on this, Council? Do you want Phil to get back to us? Do you want Phil to go ahead and put something in? Do you feel you need to have more discussion? What would you like to do?
Well, it sounds like there's no downside to letting them go ahead and replace them, unless I'm missing something. We're going to get more efficient lights. That yes, there will be that rate increase, but it balances out. We're going to have difficulties if we keep the induction lights. So I'm not seeing a downside to the replacement.
Yeah, it seems like generally quality-wise, they're better. Phil, were the pool parking lots before? Were those in induction and those got changed? The LED ones there worked pretty good.
Those are metal halides, but the LED as well.
Okay.
The only downside is the rate change. But if we might not see any changing out of the bulbs until a few more years from now, that gives us a little bit of room in navigating our budget for that. So that's the only thing I'd say.
I wonder if it's even big though. If we had like 100 lights and it costs like a extra couple dollars a year.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have no idea what the order of magnitude is. Are we talking about like $200 or
mm-hmm.
10,000?
Yeah, I know.
I put it in my notes, but it sounds like it's going to be, well, I could give you a percentage, but it really doesn't help. So I need to get the information back. I'm going to have to call Tammy, or Debbie can call Tammy. We got to find out where our information is she's supposed to give us.
I'll do that. I'll follow up with her.
Okay. I'd like to either close this discussion or make a decision. Have you all make a decision or whatever. Here's one thought. Would you want to give Phil the discretion to go ahead and do what he thinks is best based on whatever information he gets from Tammy at Pepco, or do you want him to come back to the council?
Makes sense to me because Phil would certainly come back if there was something really surprising him.
Yeah, I agree with Stephen. I think Phil, you shared a lot of information. I mean, I'm not going to get in the way of progress there. So unless something you come across some pain point that you need to address, I would just give you the clear path forward.
Yeah, agreed. And if you want to ask to put us on the latter end of that 5-year replacement plan, then yeah, that seems fine.
Actually, that's what I was thinking too, because I'd rather the mistakes be made somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good thinking.
Might give us a chance to, just real quick, it might give us a chance to, if there's a way to know what some of the earlier ones are, if they're putting in certain ranges of Kelvin at those, we could go or send some people to go look at those and see what we think about the color. And then say we want, 3,000 or whatever it is that is preferred.
Like if we go with red, is that what you were saying, Stephen?
Yeah.
With a different color? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and there's like reds and yellows up to like blues. So.
Okay.
I can assure you, if we go with color, I will be submitting colors to people because I'm not going to make that decision alone. But I will look into it because I think it might be worthwhile for us to look at it.
Well, research I've seen on lighting is that red is best at night, if that makes any difference.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Phil. Yeah, so go forward and prosper.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's go to Debbie. You got a report for us?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much, everyone. So the October financial report, revenues, operations, and capital budgets are at expected levels. And total revenues and expenses are within projections. If you look at my report, you'll see that we received the first half of the personal property taxes. We received $239,310.49 from the county. We should probably get the next big payment sometime in January. And we also received $6,473.44 in reimbursed funding from FEMA for expenses related to COVID expenditures the town has incurred. There are some expenses they did not approve, and we are submitting those to the county. Hopefully the county will approve the additional expenditures that weren't approved through FEMA. But we're getting ready to submit all that information now. Also, I was on a call today with Councilmember Friedson's office. He has a biweekly call with the town administrators and managers. And he informed us today that they have received $8 million from the state, and they're going to be doing grant funding for restaurants. And each restaurant can apply for a maximum of $10,000. Has to be used towards covering losses, and they're hoping to have the grant application ready by next week, and it's going to be administered through the county's Department of Economic Development. And once I have that, we can let the Black Market feature know, and hopefully they can apply for a grant to help offset some of the losses they've had due to having to operate at reduced capacity. And another thing, which we found out shortly before the meeting tonight, is that Garrett Park is the winner of the Maryland Municipal League's 2020 Census Challenge for having the highest participation rate for the 2020 census.
Really?
Congratulations.
All right.
Well, good. Thanks to Andrea and to Joanne for doing all the hard work on that. So kudos to both of them.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Joanne. Do we get anything else for that other than just a recognition?
Yeah,
We get a few more dollars or something?
They give us a restaurant gift certificate.
Gift certificate to a restaurant, yes.
Did they?
That's what they're going to do, yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you ask for it from the black market to support our local business?
Yes, correct.
Good idea.
Question for you, Debbie. This is Jerry Lee. Do we have any update on advertising for a replacement lease? I'm not sure what term we use, renters for our space in Penn Place since the ones that moved out earlier this year?
I'm not aware of any advertising that's been done yet. I do know one of the tenants still has a lease and they're paying, even though they're not using the space. And the other one is vacant. I'd have to ask Andrea if she had moved forward with that or not. I'm not sure if she did or didn't, but I'm not aware of any advertisement of point for tenants.
Okay.
I'm not aware of anything.
It seems like it would be a good idea to go ahead and make sure that we're getting the maximum rent that we can, given that we are expecting possibly some lower revenues this year throughout because of the COVID.
I will look into that.
Yeah, I'd say, Jerry Lee, that might be a discussion, we all should have maybe during the mid-year talk on the budget, or if we're having a budget workshop early spring or something. There's just a lot of things happening, and black markets trying to figure out what they need to do in terms of indoor, outdoor space as well. So I think it'd be better if we could kind of have that as a budget discussion. And we're still yet to have that mid-year adjustment too.
Right, but I think what Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong. I think what we're getting at is if we have occupancy, if we have vacancy for places we can rent upstairs, we should try to get those filled. Is that so?
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
Yeah, there's no downside to that.
Where I was going with that though is we've long been talking about how to make a better fit for the office, the town office up there. And we were going to try to get somebody in and give us some interior design, recommendations and stuff. So, if we bring somebody in, we might be, that limits what we can do for the time being. That's why it's November, December, January, we start talking about the mid-year, and you'll have a better idea of, where we are with revenue.
I didn't hear back on that topic, but there was an offer I made to support Jill Joseph, and she and I could have gone and taken a look at the town office, and we were going to charge $0 for that, just to put together some high-level thoughts on what possibilities would be. I sent that off months ago. I didn't hear back on it. It was in response to Andrea's question and how we could source that.
Gee, maybe you could send that again, because I don't know about it.
Okay, I'll dig it up.
All right. One more thing. Stephen had put forward a short proposal to come in with somebody to look at the space. So he's going to send that back again, because he sent it out earlier a few months ago, I guess. Before we go, Debbie, you want to make another announcement about a truck?
You must be reading our mind right now, Khaki. We were just
Okay.
asking each other about that.
Okay.
We're happy to announce that the new truck for Public Works has come in. It's a brand new Ford, and I'm gonna have to pull the email up because I don't have the email in front of me. The brand new Ford truck, it's a flatbed truck, 20-ton truck. And it's white. Oh, here we go. Okay, it's a 2020 Ford F450 regular cab, 4x4. It's a wide bed. The total price for the cost was $39,389.96. The town saved $4,200 by riding on the Montgomery County contract.
And I got a little bit more description from Butch, Debbie, and he says it's a super duper dual rear wheel axis, and that it will be outfitted and built out to handle, the dumping or the tipping of the truck, like a dump truck. So that's yet to come, I guess.
It's great.
Okay.
I'm sure the boys are happy.
Yeah, they've been talking about that for years because it's all rusted underneath. Really bad. All right, unless there's anything else, I'd like to close the meeting. Is there anything else from anybody? Council?
Not for me.
Okay, great. 8:46. I didn't do quite as well as Dan did a month ago, but the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.